Winning an NBA championship requires a lot of things going right at the same moment, and that's one of the reasons why it's such a difficult thing to do. Among the usual requirements to reach the promised land, there's building a competitive roster and assembling an elite coaching staff, but another element that's just as important is having a little bit of luck. In a sport that requires so much skill as basketball, it seems strange to talk about luck. After all, teams win games based on the effort they've put in throughout the years, not because they're lucky. However, all it takes is a moment to change the way things were supposed to go. In a matter of seconds, someone can get injured, and suddenly a team with championship aspirations may be reduced to a simple spectator for a full season. The Golden State Warriors already went through that process and expected to return to their usual selves, but now another injury could change everything once again. Welcome to Courtside. Today we're talking about Klay Thompson's latest injury and how it may affect the immediate future of the Warriors. Heading into the offseason, the Warriors had one of the most unique situations going for themselves. After a season in which injuries took the team from a finals appearance to the bottom of the standings, they had the opportunity to reclaim their spot as contenders by adding more talent to their returning stars. The plan was simple: allow the big three of Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Thompson to get back at full health, while also integrating Andrew Wiggins and Eric Paschall into the offensive system that helped them win 3 rings. Then add as much talent as possible through the draft or the cap space exceptions acquired during last season. That way, the franchise would surround its championship core with young and versatile players who could help them make another deep playoff run that would prove all of the doubters wrong. However, there was a big condition that had to be fulfilled for that plan to be successful. Everyone had to remain healthy. A couple of weeks ago, that didn't seem like a real concern. After all, it had been over 8 months since the Warriors last played a basketball game. And in the case of Curry and Thompson, the duo had combined for only 5 appearances since the 2019 finals. So with that much time to heal their bodies, no one expected any of them to go through another major injury anytime soon, but then the franchise's plan suffered a critical setback. Hours before the start of the draft ceremony, it was reported that Thompson had suffered a lower leg injury during a workout, and the team feared he could have suffered a significant Achilles injury. Then on the following day, it was confirmed the shooting guard had suffered a torn right Achilles tendon and would miss the whole 2020-21 season after undergoing injury. And while the surgery was a success and Klay is expected to make a full recovery, his absence represents a devastating blow to the Warriors' aspirations for the upcoming season. Back when Golden State won its first of 3 championships during the last decade, the shooting guard was one of the biggest offensive threats in the roster. He, along with his splash brother Curry, formed what became known as the best backcourt in the NBA, and was a fundamental part of the team's success. In the following seasons, his role would see a small reduction as he became more of a catch-and-shoot player following the addition of Kevin Durant in the summer of 2016, but that barely affected his production and efficiency. However, things would go wrong for the star guard in the 2019 finals. During the series against the Toronto Raptors, he suffered a torn ACL that would take him out of the next season. That became the first major injury in Thompson's professional career, as he had never played less than 70 games since his rookie season. And it also became the first of many setbacks for the Warriors dynasty. Shortly after being defeated by the Raptors, Durant announced his intention to sign a new deal with the Brooklyn Nets, thus leaving the franchise that helped him become a champion. Without him, the Warriors were left without one of their best scoring options, and since Klay was also ruled out for the season, it was expected most of the burden on the offensive end of the floor would fall upon Curry and newly acquired D'Angelo Russell. Though most people assumed the Warriors would take a step back as they adapted to playing without both stars, it was believed they would be good enough to compete against the best teams in the Western Conference. However, the team had a slow start, and after Curry also suffered an injury, only 4 games into the season, Golden State started to focus on the future and decided to use the opportunity to give their young prospects more playing time. As we know, that strategy had many positive results for the team, which included the impressive rookie campaign of Paschall, the trade that brought Wiggins from Minnesota in exchange for Russell, and the acquisition of the second pick in this year's draft. But the idea was always to make a triumphant return as early as possible, and the proof of that was the fact that the front office evaluated multiple trade scenarios involving the second pick to try to acquire a player that could help the roster immediately. And while Klay's injury doesn't change the plans going forward, his absence may be enough to put some distance between the Warriors and a 6th finals berth. After all, things were already going to be more difficult than in previous years. Without Durant, the team would need to rely more on the Splash Brothers. And while that resulted in a 73-9 season the last time around, it also resulted in a blown 3-1 series lead in the finals against LeBron James and the Cavs. That's not to say the Warriors would have been a bad team, even without KD. They had enough tools and experience to make it to at least the conference finals, but the path to get there could have been more difficult than before, and even more so to win another championship. However, it was still possible for the team to regain its status as a contender, but now that Klay will miss a 2nd consecutive season, what should we expect from Curry and company? In the case of analysts and odds makers, most of them expected the former champions to be among the best teams in the league at first, along with the Lakers, Clippers, Nets, and Bucks. But after learning about Thompson's injuries, those projections have taken a step back. Now, most people expect the Warriors to be a tier below the elite teams, and some have even questioned their ability to make the playoffs with the shooting guard. However, that may be a stretch. While it's true Golden State could find it difficult to finish among the best 4 in the West without Thompson, the truth is they've added enough pieces to remain as a playoff contender. Some could point out last season as an example of what could happen without Klay's services on both ends of the court, but there's not enough evidence to claim the Warriors would be a bad team with Curry and Green playing at full strength. On top of that, the front office made sure the roster would be better this time around. While the team was unable to add many reliable pieces during last year's free agency, Bob Myers made an excellent job at correcting their depth issues. Aside from Steph and Draymond, the roster will include some of last year's players such as Wiggins, Pascal, and role players like Kevin Looney, Jordan Poole, and Damian Lee. However, it's the newcomers who may make the biggest difference. The most intriguing additions so far are Kelly Oubre Jr. and James Wiseman, and both are expected to provide some much-needed help. In the case of Oubre, he was acquired to assume Thompson's spot in the starting lineup, using the traded player exception that was created when Andre Iguodala was sent to Memphis. And while the young forward is not a star player, he's a valuable piece that's capable of providing scoring and shooting from long range. As for Wiseman, he may not be asked to produce as much on offense, but should be tasked with putting all of his attention on the defensive end. After all, it may be a few years before the Warriors need him to score a lot of points, but if he's able to establish a defensive presence close to the basket, he could have an immediate impact for the team. The front office also added some depth by signing Brad Wanamaker and Kent Bazemore, and though none of them should be expected to have outstanding numbers, they should be able to fill specific needs off the bench. So by looking at the roster the front office has put together, it's safe to say Golden State will keep on being a good team. However, how far it can go in the playoffs may ultimately depend on both Curry and Wiggins. As a 2-time MVP winner and the team's best player, most of the attention on offense will be focused on Curry, who may have to return to put up large scoring numbers to make sure the Warriors can compete against the best teams in the league. That wouldn't be something new, though. During the last season before the addition of Durant, he led the league in scoring with an average of 30 points per game. However, the team may not want to push its 32-year-old star too far during the regular season, which leads us to Wiggins. Though his effort has been questioned a lot during the last few years, the former number 1 selection has the ability to put around 20 points per game and take over games if needed. Under a new system and surrounded by experienced winners, he may be able to unleash his potential as the team's second option. If he's also capable of using his physical tools on the defensive end, he may be the closest the team will get to a player like Thompson. If he's able to take that step forward, he could be the team's X factor going into the season and help them win a bunch of games. But if he doesn't, things may be more complicated than expected. So at the end of the day, the Warriors will need to make adjustments on the fly if they want to remain among the best teams in the league. And while it's going to be difficult, they should be able to compete against anyone in the league. A title may not be expecting at the end of the season, but they have enough pieces to make things work and give rival teams a run for their money. And considering they should be more motivated than ever, we could see them giving their best effort since 2016, which could make their season a damn exciting one. But now, how well do you believe the Warriors will be in the upcoming season? Who do you think should take a step forward in Klay's absence? Let us know in the comments. We hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, remember to like it and subscribe to our channel so that you can get more NBA content, because we are Courtside.